Hey folks, it's today's green goo version. This contains, let me think, about 1/4 of a cucumber, 4 or 5 strawberries, 6 radishes, a handful of celery green this time, so celery leaves, fresh, 1 apple with skin on but not the core, and then 3 dandelion leaves. And I think that's it, really. I'm doing a bit of varying. Oh yes, the juice of 1 orange went in there as well. So I'm having something like this every day at the moment. And I will show you what my garden looks like while I talk in the meantime. Sorry for the big chair. That's just where I dump all my stuff, as you can see. It's beautiful weather out here at the moment. And we're just outside enjoying the sunshine as much as possible. And I find that my daily portion of green goo like this is so extraordinarily helpful to, get the whole organism happy, and everything is just detoxing and everything's way better. It's improving, I can tell. And I think this is day 5 or so that I'm doing this at the moment consecutively. And this is on top of everything else that I eat. So food-wise, I'm going to turn you around so I can look at you. Let me see how that works. Sometimes I think you should, be able to switch cameras in the middle of recording. I don't think that's possible. Yes, here we are again. Sorry, I have no glasses on, so I can't see what I'm doing, really. So on top of everything else that I have food-wise, so I eat practically everything. I'm no vegetarian, as I've said on my channel several times already. I didn't ever have the need, or in whatever way, to go vegetarian. I am lately more and more concerned about animal welfare and that type of thing, which sounds like a completely hypocritical viewpoint if you eat meat and dairy and that type of thing. I sort of try to compensate for the hypocrisy by taking only organic grown materials or food or whatever, if that's possible. I also try to not make too big of a deal of it, because if there's one thing, first of all, my issue is first of all with health. And for me personally and my husband, animal protein is a necessity. So that's not something I am really willing to do without, let me put it that way. And whether it's yogurt or eggs or milk or any of it, I try to do as much variation as I can. I try to take organic, shop organic when I can. It's not always possible. And then again, there's another issue. A lot of my husband's clients are either, French fried shops type, Kentucky Fried Chicken type shops, or Chinese restaurants. They're all Chinese. And I have to be able to eat at those places. And, Chinese restaurants, especially Chinese food, tends to be made with monosodium glutamate, which is something I really don't live with very well. So because I have, social reasons that I want to be able to eat at those places, and because I don't think that having a meal there once every couple of months or so is really going to do me any harm, I have to sort of be in the middle of everything. And so that's what I try to do most of the time. I try to, like yesterday night, for example, my husband had to go to clients to pick up the administration files that they had for the month. And that means eating a hamburger over there. So, and that's a good hamburger. I like it. So that's cool. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, that's fine. However, I am discovering again with my green goo therapy session here that I'm having that raw fruit and vegetables without anything added to them except certain herbs like the dandelion, which is a diuretic, it does me the world of good. And so there can be a lot of good can be gained from looking at vegan recipes, for example, which is something that I will do. I do not, for myself, believe in a vegan lifestyle or even a vegetarian lifestyle. Also, for one other reason out of the past, apart from the thing that I mentioned just now, that we have social obligations and places where we have to eat and places where we have to mingle with people where the standards are really very different, and I have to be able to live with that. I don't already as it is, if I go to a Chinese restaurant, the next day I tend to feel kind of weird because of the monosodium glutamate that I've had. And I can't say no. I can't say no, I'm not having that, I'm just having sushi. So, and even then, sushi, fish and all that beautiful stuff, by the way. So, there's that factor that tends to sort of draw me back to the middle where, it's kind of that you can kind of live with everybody, that type of stuff. The other thing is that when I was in the foster family as a child of 7 years old, emotionally, I was in big trouble back then, and nobody was really trying to help me except my foster mom back in the day. She really did try to give me more support than I could really. I was enjoying it, I remember. And poor woman, she's ill at the moment. She's had a bit of dehydration issues and whatever that's going on with her. And she is recuperating, but she's over 90, so I'm kind of worried and kind of hoping that she'll be okay. So, but she was a vegetarian all her life. So when I lived with them for 5 months, I was sort of forced, and I was 7 years old then, to be a vegetarian with them. And it's just become this big mess in my brain where I was afterwards back with my mother again. My mother, who kidnapped me from school in the middle of the day and just took me along, and things were explained sort of long afterwards. So that was dramatic and traumatic for my foster family as well, because they were really worried for 2 days because they didn't know what had become of me. Oh, such a nightmare. But in those days, I was sort of forced again to be loyal to my mother, who was a meat eater. And so, too complicated. All of it is just too complicated. And I eat what I like as long as I can look after my health and look after my body as well as I can. And that means basically a lot of balance. I basically eat everything on the planet, doesn't matter. I used to have hypoglycemia. I don't know if that's what it's called really, where your sugar levels can drop drastically and you just go completely nuts, or depressed, or can't stop crying or something like that. Very high sugar intolerance almost. That taught me, I'm talking 25, 30 years ago. My mother was still alive. Lots of stress. Oh God. And it taught me to watch sugars. So I'm a rather fan of fiber, uh, whole wheat type products, several using several different types of grain together, barley and what have you. I don't know the names in English, or I can't think of them at the moment, and especially seeds and nuts and that type of stuff. So because I'm strong and healthy, my husband used to have more like hay fever and that type of thing. He used to have a very much more limited, normal diet, I think. And from living with me and getting, spaghetti with heaps of tomato sauce with home chopped vegetables and onions and all the rest of it, I tend to think of myself more as a chef. I go for the spices and I go for all that. And it has done him a lot of good, and I don't think he has really got any signs of hay fever left at all. So I think dealing with allergies is people tend to go really for what's the problem, what is the natural agent that causes the allergy, and then how can I block that or sort of thing. Whereas what I think people should do is how can I build up my strength? B, C, D, how can I build up my strength? And then E, what is the sort of nature of that plant thing, for example? Let's say it's a plant that causes the allergy. What is the nature of that, and how do I overreact to it? Because I have like maybe 2 or 3 allergies really to very specific plants, and I should have looked this up before I started my long tale here. What the name is of the plant. I'll put it in the description, okay? There's a plant that grows by the waterside here in some locations, and one time I picked quite a nice bouquet of those when they were flowering for my mum. I don't know, 14 or so, and I had itchy bumps on my whole body for a week, like I had been eaten alive by a horde of mosquitoes or something like that. Mosquitoes love me, by the way. Apparently I have nice blood. So that sort of told me that that plant I had to stay away from, even though I loved the flowers and all. And later, lots and lots of time later, afterwards, I looked up what this plant really does, and you have to sort of shop around. I can't really say whether I don't really know of a database where you could look up that kind of energy qualities of plants or any of it. I'd have to see whether I can find any real good websites where you could look that type of stuff up. But those qualities, the only thing I can think of at the moment is there's a book by Scott Cunningham called Magical Herbs and something. It's a catalogue of herbs and plants, and they give sort of, Scott Cunningham is the author. That's I'm sure of. They give like elements and planets characteristics, so you have to know about those to be able to fill in. But I find that most of what he says is actually correct. So yeah, that and old herbals and that type of stuff. That's where you can get info on the nature. Let's just say that there are some plants that are hotter than others, and some are more watery, and some are more, along those lines. And I have there's 2 plants. The other plant that I'm allergic to is the rue, and I know that name because I ran into it several times, and it shares with the first one a certain fiery and hasty quality. It's like a hasty plant. They grow like crazy, and it's like that characteristic is in my nature as well, only it's been very largely suppressed, and I should be a lot more spontaneous and a lot more sudden, and like that, explosive even, in my life. And then probably once I live with that for several years, the allergy theoretically should subside. So that's more or less, that's my little story about those plants. I will, like I said, I will look them up and stick them in the description, and then maybe there's, maybe it's useful to somebody. It's a process. It's all of it is a long process, and you don't really. I don't think you can. I mean, I just stay away from those 2 plants, and it's not a problem. I'm not allergic to anything food-wise, really, so I'm okay. What else is there? Yes, with the green goo recipes, I vary. Like I said, I vary them every day. Sometimes it's kiwi in there, celery sticks. I used some type of Chinese pak soy. Is that what it's called? Like these very big white stalks with the cabbagey leaves at the top. That type of stuff. Something along those lines. And as long as it's fairly juicy and my blender machine can work it really well. It's amazing how well my body is doing, really. I have lots less pain in my joints. Oh, that's nice, you know. I am feeling way fitter. I am beating myself over the head for not doing this more often. So, on that note, I'm going to leave you again. Bye bye for now, and I will maybe be back with some interesting decks because I've spotted a website that has JPEGs, scans of decks that we're not supposed to have unless we pay for them. And you know, it's kind of cool, but maybe not. Maybe I'm not quite sure. There's lots of those that are on there are really out of print decks, so then it's not a crime, isn't it? To take them out. So, and it's a lot of work making your own, and but I've done it, and you can make small versions and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps me busy. So, yes, back soon. Thank you for watching, as always. Bye bye.